What's up guys, my name is Bravo, and the Indigo Disc DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is almost upon us, and it will bring in new and returning Pokemon to the game that will shake up both the Smogon meta and the VGC meta. In this video, I'm going to be going over the top 10 returning Pokemon that's going to be coming back in the Indigo Disc DLC. This list might contain leaks as some of these Pokemon was not shown in the trailers yet, so be warned. Before the video starts though, I do like to thank you guys for subscribing to the channel recently. I'm almost up to 700 subscribers, and I appreciate you all for watching my videos and subscribing. I'll be making a lot more video when the DLC drops, so stay tuned for that. And with that being said, let's go over the top 10 returning Pokemon for the Indigo Disc DLC. For number 10 on this list, we have Serperior. Now, Serperior is a really good grass type starter from Pokemon Black and White, and this Pokemon is going to be making a return in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Indigo Disc DLC. I'm going to be going over some stats. I'm going to be going over what this Pokemon would do in the meta of Scarlet and Violet, and so on and so forth. Then I goes for all of the other Pokemon as well. So the first thing I do want to talk about how this Pokemon does have a very good speed stat of base 113. So it's able to keep up with a good amount of Pokemon that's in the meta as we speak, like Pokemon like Chi-Yu, Pokemon like Tinglu, like most of the ruinous Pokemon, and is also able to be in par with Pokemon like Palafin, if people even still uses that Pokemon. So yeah, this Pokemon is really good in speed. It has a decent bulk of defense and special defense of being both base 95, and this Pokemon is definitely going to get a good terrestrialization buff, as you can terrestrialize this Pokemon into one of these types. You could terrestrialize this thing into Terra Fire or Terra Rock or Terra Steel. Those are like the most notable types that you can give this thing. You can even give this thing like Terra Flying, so it can be able to counter against some of these types that it's not good against, like bug types for example. So that's extremely good. The only thing that's holding this Pokemon back though is the poor move pool, because looking at it here, it doesn't have any good attacks that I can benefit off of, and most of the time in the competitive scene, everyone is using Serperior as a special attacker because of its hidden ability Contrary. By the way, this is a really crazy ability, by the way, where it makes stat changes have an opposite effect. So if you was to use moves like Leaf Storm and it reduces your special attack by 2 stages, it's going to increase it instead. So that's a really good hidden ability for this Pokemon. The only thing though, it's really lacking in special attack. If it was like base 85, it would be a lot more better, but that's besides the point. The thing is, it's the moveset that's really holding this Pokemon back from its true potential, because it only knows like good moves like Giga Drain, Leaf Storm, what else, like Energy Ball, like most of the time normal moves like Hyper Beam or something. Hidden Power is no longer in the game, but Hyper Beam is not even used like that. So that's like the craziest issue that this Pokemon have. Not only that, it does have a Dragon type move, but it's like the weakest one there, like Twister. No one uses that. Mirror Coat, this is a unreliable move for it. So I don't know how they would change this Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, but I really do hope they give this thing like proper moves. But that's the real thing that's holding it back, is that it just has a poor move pool of special attacks, because the only thing I could think of is that you could just give this thing Leaf Storm and then give it Terra Blast based on whatever Terra type you're giving it, and it does have a cracked ability of Contrary, so you may be able to come up with something. Now I'm going to talk about the usage, because again, I'm going to be talking about how well these Pokemon do in both singles and doubles. So the first thing I want to talk about is the singles, where I will be going to Smogon here. Okay, let me just remove that. I'll be going to Smogon right here. They have a lot of good resources for you to look at Pokemon and whatnot. So you look at Serperior right here, and it's in the OU tier. That's the second highest tier in the Smogon meta. So this Pokemon is extremely good in single battles. And this is like back in Sun and Moon, because this was like a very long time ago. So this Pokemon was really strong back then. But the question is now, will this Pokemon fall off? Because with all the new Pokemon that's now here, like Paradox Pokemon, the Ruinous Pokemon, we have Pokemon like Palafin, we have Chi-Yu, we have Fluttermane, all these Pokemon. Is it going to be able to keep up with those Pokemon in the meta right now? That's the biggest question I have here. So it does have a very good unique overview along with like a very decent move set. So yeah, I feel like Serperior has a slight chance that it could be better, but there is a bigger chance of this Pokemon falling off, and that's the really unfortunate part. Now, if you look at the doubles here, I'm in Picaltix, shout out to them. If you look at Picaltix here, I can't even click on this Pokemon because this Pokemon is not used, that they literally do not just, like, I clicked on it and this is what they did. So, yeah, that's honestly unfortunate. This Pokemon is not used that well in doubles. Like, no one uses this Pokemon at all, so yeah, this Pokemon does have a slight chance that it will fall off, and that's the unfortunate part. So hopefully this Pokemon does get some type of buff, but I really don't see that happening. Alright, for number 9 we have Hitmontop. Now Hitmontop is a really good Pokemon back in the days of Sword and Shield. How it had a very decent base stat total of 455. It had a really good stats in attack, defense, and special defense. Mediocre speed stat of base 70, and it had a really good utility moveset with moves being like wide guard. It had fake out. Let me go down here. It had moves like close combat. It had moves like bullet punch, if I can find it. Yep, bullet punch right here. Like, it had a really wide range of attack. Actually, let me go to Sword Shield. Yep. So yeah, it had a really wide range of utility moves along with a lot of physical attacks. It had moves like wide guard, quick guard, sucker punch, close combat. So yeah, despite this Pokemon being extremely good with its move pool, the only thing that is holding this Pokemon back is the bad HP stat of base 50. Yes, it does have good bulk and defense and special defense, but the HP stuff is really kind of holding this thing back a little bit. But despite that, it's still good. The only problem I have with this Pokemon is that even with terrestrialization, this Pokemon won't be able to keep up with much of the popular Pokemon in the current meta, with Pokemon like Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, because again, there's going to be a lot of Paradox Pokemon and a lot of Ruined Pokemon that's going to be running about in the metas, whether it's either singles or doubles. So that's the one thing this Pokemon will be struggling against. But overall, it's a decent Pokemon. Now, let's look at the usage here. This Pokemon was last seen in Pokemon Sword and Shield. So, looking at the stats there, you can see it has the stats right there. It has the moveset. This Pokemon was mostly used as a rapid spin user, and it had the ability Technician. It also had some very good abilities. I forgot to talk about that. It had abilities like Intimidate, Technician, Steadfast. Okay, let me just remove this. That's annoying. And yeah, this Pokemon had a very good amount of abilities along with the good move pool. And the items that you could run on this thing was really good as well. It's just the stats that's probably holding this thing back a little bit. And yeah, like I said, it won't be able to keep up with much of the popular Pokemon in the meta. So this thing will be going down quite easily to some power hitters. So that's the one problem this Pokemon has to face in the meta, because that's going to be ridiculous. For number 8, we have Flygon. Flygon is an amazing Pokemon that has been here since Generation 3, which is like Ruby and Sapphire. One of my favorite Dragon-type Pokemon as well. It does have a very drastic weakness to Ice and all that, but this Pokemon, there's so much stuff I want to talk about this, but the first thing I do want to talk about is the massive buff is going to get with terrestrialization, because that you could terrestrialize this Pokemon, you can be able to terrestrialize it into either a fire type, a rock type, or a steel type. And with those 3 types, you can be able to counter against Ice, you could counter against Fairy, like 2 of its weaknesses. You can also get some like neutral damage going when it comes to Dragon type moves. But either way, like, terrestrializing Flygon is going to be extremely good in this gen. Next thing I do want to talk about is its amazing stats. It has base 100 attack, base 100 speed. This thing could mostly be ran as a Dragon Dance physical sweeper set. If you don't want to go for a physical attack set, you can also go for a special attack set as well. With having it's not bad, but at the same time it's not good. But the special attack is base 80, and it does share that with its defense and special defense along with its HP. Now, the best thing about this Pokemon is its diverse move pool. It has moves like Earthquake, it has moves like Bug Buzz, Earth Power, Dragon Rush. It has, what else? U-Turn. It has Rock Slide. It has Fire Spin, Solar Beam, Thunder Punch, Fire Punch. It has so many good moves that you could run this thing either as a special attacker or you could run it as a physical attacker. So there's a lot of options that you could run when using Flygon. That's the best part about it. And yeah, despite all that, it might have some difficulty keeping up with some Pokemon in this meta. Like, you're gonna hear me talking a lot about the Paradox Pokemon and the Ruinous Pokemon. Along with that, there's also Pokemon that came out in this game that does have buffs to their move pool. Pokemon, for example, like the Genies, like Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus, they all have buffs with their moves, with their signature moves, actually. So I see Flygon may have some difficulty dealing with those Pokemon especially. And it will also like have trouble dealing with the Legends Arceus Pokemon, because those are another case of struggling. So they might be able to give Flygon a big problem. Even with terrestrialization, it could keep up with some of them, but it will be difficult to, because there is a lot of strong Pokemon in this meta that is like twice as fast as Flygon. So that's the unfortunate part. But let's look at the stats here for like its usage, and you can look here on Smogon. This Pokemon has been used in the RU tier, so it's a decent tier. It's not bad, but at the same time it's not good. But this Pokemon is used like a lot in this tier. Like you can see its most notable set is Dragon Dance, Earthquake, Outrage, and Stone Edge. It's either an Adamant or a Jolly Rancher and Life Orb. So yeah, this Pokemon is extremely good as a physical attack sweeper. Like, you really cannot underestimate this Pokemon. The only unfortunate part is that this Pokemon does not have any popular usage in VGC, so I can't get the statistics for that. The unfortunate part, I'm sorry for that, but you can tell this Pokemon has been used a good amount of times back in Sword and Shield. So I really look forward to see what this Pokemon can do in this meta like this. For number 7 on this list, we have Primarina. Now, Primarina is a Water and Fairy type Pokemon. That's the starter of Gen 7. And one thing to note about this Pokemon is that it has a very, and I mean a very good special attack set of being base 126. So this Pokemon is extremely strong on the special attack side. It has a good bulk and special defense being base 116, but it is really slow and the physical side is not doing very well. But despite all of that, this Pokemon is a powerhouse, like an underrated one, I would say. It does have an amazing hidden ability that's called Liquid Voice, and what it basically does is that it turns all sound-based moves to water-type moves. So moves like Hyper Voice or Uproar or Echoed Voice, they're all turned into water types, which makes this Pokemon extremely good. Because if you're running this thing in like double battles and you have Hyper Voice and you have this ability, Hyper Voice turns into a water type, so it helps out with Primarina, and I think it also gives it like a power boost and stab as well. So moves like that, it is just amazing. And it does have a very good move pool, like with most notable moves being like Liquid Voice. It has, well, not Liquid Voice, I'm sorry, Hyper Voice, Moonblast, Energy Ball, Ice Beam. It also has like moves like Shadow Ball, Psychic, Store Power, Play Rough, Dazzling Gleam. Like, it has a very good special attack move pool. So this Pokemon is good. Like I said before, the only thing that's kind of holding it back is its speed and its defense. So it won't be able to do as much. But if you're running this thing on like a Trick Room approach, or if you're running like Assault Vest on this thing, this Pokemon could be very decent to be used. And let's go over the usage, because I do have a lot of things about this Pokemon that I do want to say. First off, I want to talk about Primarina and its single battle usage, as this Pokemon has been used in the underused tier a lot. I'm so sorry, I messed that up, but yeah, it's been used in that tier a good amount of times. This Pokemon is extremely good in that tier, as it has moves like Scald, Moonblast, Arrest, and Sleep Talk. That's really good. You can also give this thing a Bold Nature, so you can help out with this special defense and its HP. And yeah, it can be pretty much a tank, pretty much, if you run a set like this. So I can see this Pokemon being used a lot more in the single battles of Scarlet and Violet. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about is its VGC usage, because surprisingly enough, this Pokemon has not been used that much. Like, its usage is at 0.05%. Despite that, it has been used a good amount of times back in Sword and Shield, if I remembered. But however, terrestrialization will buff this Pokemon, so it will be people will be able to use this Pokemon a lot more with different other teams. The only thing that people have to watch out for if they're going to run a Pokemon like Primarina is that if you're running this Pokemon in VGC, it's now going to start pushing players to use Tinglu more frequently. Now, for people who doesn't know, Tinglu has the ability where it can reduce the special attack of all the Pokemon on the field, including its allies. And if you're running Pokemon like Primarina or the previous Pokemon I mentioned earlier, like Serperior, is going to push players to use Tinglu much more frequently, so you're going to have to watch out for that. And yeah, that's one thing you're going to have to watch out for. I really look forward to seeing this Pokemon come back. For number 6 on this list, we have Duraludon. Duraludon, I'm so sorry for that. I almost messed that up. But yes, Duraludon is on this list for a good amount of reasons. One, this Pokemon is getting a evolution in the Indigo Disc DLC. Two, it has some good buffs, with not only Terrestrialization giving this Pokemon a good buff, Eviolite is going to be now buffing this Pokemon, since it has basically Duraludon is now a pre-evolution. So this Pokemon is going to get a lot of buffs once the Indigo Disc drops. And not only that, despite those buffs, this Pokemon was already good as it is, because it has a good special attack stat being base 120, good attack stat being base 95, and a good defense stat of being base 115. And it has a very good average speed stat of 85. So this Pokemon was already good as it is, and it had a very good hidden ability known as Stalwart. And what it does is that it ignores moves and abilities that draw in moves. So moves like Rage Powder or Follow Me, Duraludon's gonna be unaffected by it. Because of that, this Pokemon is really good and is gonna get a lot of buffs once the DLC drops. It does have a poor special defense stat of being base 50, but it doesn't matter because Eviolite will buff that Pokemon with its defenses. So there's a lot of stuff going for this Pokemon. And because of that Eviolite buff, I feel like this Pokemon will be much more better in the VGC meta because of that, because people could just run Eviolite, Duraludon, and it could just be a total nuisance to the Pokemon. Like, I feel like it could be able to keep up with Fluttermane some of the time. Like popular Pokemon like Fluttermane, it could keep up probably with like Roaring Moon, because Roaring Moon is a powerful Pokemon, but with the defense stat like that, Duraludon will be able to keep up with that. And yeah, that's pretty much that. So it also has a very good usage, surprisingly enough. Not as base, but back in Sword and Shield when Gigantamax was a thing, this Pokemon was used a lot because of its move where it could, I think, if I can remember, I think the G-Max move for it can deplete your opponent's like power points for their attacks. So I think that was really good back in doubles. And as base, it was really in a bad tier, so that's the unfortunate part, because I feel like this Pokemon was used a lot in doubles. But it was a really good Pokemon nonetheless. Now, if we look at the VGC stats here, this Pokemon has been poorly used throughout the course of Sword and Shield. But back then, when Sword and Shield was coming out and people was using this Pokemon had a very good usage rate, but that all went down the drain as soon as more legendaries started coming into play, more mythicals, better Pokemon, and because of all of that, it kind of lowered down Duraludon's usage. So that's the unfortunate part. Will it make a comeback in the meta? I hope so, but it's gonna take a while for it to recover. For number 5 on this list, we have Metagross. Now, Metagross is another powerful Steel-type Pokemon from back then, and it was doing a lot of stuff in the old metas of Sword and Shield. Like, because this Pokemon is now coming back in the Indigo Disc, it's gonna get a, like, I can't even speak, it's gonna get a good buff with Terrestrialization. With the stats that it has, base 135 attack, base 130 defense, this thing is a tank. It's a physical tank. However, it is having a mediocre speed stat of base 70, but the defenses on special defense is decent with being base 90. But despite that, this Pokemon is really powerful, so you cannot sleep on this thing. It does have a, I would say, a cracked move pool, because you could run this thing with a lot of physical attacks and it will just do damage no matter what. Like, you can give this moves like Zen Headbutt, you can give it Hammer Arm, Bullet Punch. What else? You can give this thing Rock Slide. I think it knows Rock Slide. I can't find it right now, but it does know Rock Slide. Yep, right there, Rock Slide. It has Bulldoze. It has moves like Rock Smash, Flash Cannon. Like, it has a very good diverse move pool, and he has moves like Stomping Tantrum, Earthquake. So you can run this Pokemon with a lot of physical attacks, and it will do a lot of damage, like, no matter what, because this Pokemon is just built like that. It does have a very decent like ability. It has like Clear Body, where you could prevent it from getting its stats lowered. So if you was like running a Pokemon with Bulldoze and it like lowers Metagross speed, it won't. and it also has light metal, but this ability is not like used as much. So yeah, clear body is the way for this thing. Now for the usage, this Pokemon has been used. I am tired of this. This Pokemon has been used in the RU tier, so not a good tier for this Pokemon to be in, but nonetheless, it was still powerful during its time. And for the usage in VGC, this Pokemon hasn't been used as much because it has a very poor it has a very poor stats with 0.09% of usage. And because if this Pokemon is to be making a huge comeback in the VGC meta, you're gonna have to watch out for Pokemon like Fluttermane and Chi-Yu. Those two Pokemon alone could defeat Metagross like completely, because those two Pokemon, and if they're both on the say if this was a doubles, right? I cannot speak. I am so sorry. But say this was like a doubles battle, right? And people's running like Fluttermane and Chi-Yu. This Pokemon is going to be struggling a lot because those two Pokemon alone could defeat Metagross, pretty much. So if you're running Metagross to make a comeback in the VGC meta, I would recommend a lot of powerful Pokemon. I would say Tinglu. Like I said before, Tinglu is gonna be used much more frequently because of Primarina. So that is like a most notable partner for that Pokemon. Number 4, we have Whimsicott. Now, Whimsicott is like, I would say this Pokemon is the most annoying Pokemon to deal with in the VGC meta back in Sword and Shield. This Pokemon is extremely good, and it's the most broken utility Pokemon in that meta, despite its type combination being Grass and Fairy, which is, I would say, kind of weak, because it is weak to like a good amount of types. It's even 4 times weak to Poison. So despite that, and even its stats, this Pokemon was so annoying to deal with. Like, it has mediocre stats. The only thing that's going for it is its base speed being 116. And it's with the Terrestrialization is going to buff this Pokemon. It's going to buff this Pokemon completely, because now if you Terrestrialize a Whimsicott, you could Terrestrialize it into Terra Steel, so it cannot like get one-shotted by a Poison type. Or you could Terrestrialize this thing into a Dragon type, so it won't get hit from like the elementals like types like fire, water, electric, grass, and all that stuff. So this Pokemon has a lot of stuff going for it. It has a crazy ability with being Prankster, giving it a priority to status moves. And because it has Prankster, it has a lot of status moves to benefit from. So if I could go over here, I'm about to just put them all the way up on the screen right now. You could see it right here. It has moves like Tailwind, Poison Powder, Memento, Leech Seed, Helping Hand, Cotton Guard, Charm, what else? Trick Room, Fake Tears, Helping Hand, Sunny Day. Like, this Pokemon could benefit from so many status moves from its move pool. That's the crazy part to deal with that. And even though it's the most cracked like utility mon in the game, it is very frail. Looking at its stats, it is good, but at the same time, it is like really bad. So like, you can't run this thing as a proper like sweeper or anything. You just basically use it as a defensive utility mon, and you can just get away with a lot of stuff. Now, I don't see this Pokemon has been used very poorly in the singles meta, but for the VGC meta, oh my gosh, this thing was all over the place. Look at his usage. 31.72% of people use this Pokemon. And if you can look at the moves right here: Tailwind, Charm, Cotton Spore, Light Screen, Taunt. Like, there's so much stuff that this Pokemon has going for. So I really know for a fact this Pokemon is gonna be annoying again. Like, you take a look at that. Like, you look at the stats here, it's alright, but its utility is just off the charts. And because, like I said before, Terrestrialization will buff most of these Pokemon in the meta when it comes to singles and doubles. And because this Pokemon can do the same, it's going to be much more annoying to deal with. Number 3 on this list, we have Solgaleo, legendary Pokemon of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I do not know this Pokemon, like if this Pokemon is going to be coming back in Scarlet and Violet, or if it's not. So this is one of the Pokemon that has been rumored / leaked to be coming back in Scarlet and Violet. So that means all the other Pokemon will be making a return as well. But I'll save that for another video. For now, we're going to be talking about this crazy Pokemon over here, being Solgaleo. So basically, Solgaleo, nothing much to say about it. It's just Metagross, but more cracked than usual. Because it has Full Metal Body, which is basically the same ability as Clear Body, where it prevents Pokemon from lowering its stats. It has a crazy stats, like with HP and attack being base 137. Has a very, very decent, well, it has a very good special attack stat being base 113. Very good bulk. A very good average speed stat being base 97. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going for this Pokemon. It has a very strong move pool as well. It has moves like Sunsteel Strike, which is its not hidden move, but its signature move. Yep, Sunsteel Strike. If I can remember, what does this do? If I can remember, yep, it does ignore target's ability, so that's what makes it much more crazy. And it also has moves like Crunch, Wild Charge, Flare Blitz, Wide Guard. It has moves like Thunder Wave. Like you could also run this Pokemon for like status as well. It even has like Rock Slide, and also has Bulldoze. It has a very good amount of moves that you can use with this Pokemon. Because back in Sword and Shield days, because I think in the last regulation they allowed everyone to use like one legendary and one mythical per team. So during that time, Solgaleo was crazy. This Pokemon was extremely crazy to use. Like pairing this up with Spectrier, this Pokemon was a monster to deal with. If we could look, I don't have the things right here, so unfortunately I don't have the statistics, but I could tell you with complete honesty that this Pokemon was using the Uber tier, which is mostly the tiers with legendary Pokemon and mythical Pokemon. And for its usage, it was really average. I would say like 30%, like 30% wise. But yeah, this Pokemon was used a lot. So seeing a Pokemon like this come back in the meta, I'm really looking forward to it. Number 2, we have Venusaur. Now, most of you guys are probably going to be surprised of why you see Venusaur as number 2 on this list, but there is a good amount of reason to it. Let me go over it. So first off, even though it has average stats, like base 525 base stat total, this Pokemon is really powerful despite the average stats that it has, like base 100 special attack, base special defense of 100, and base speed of 80. Despite all that, this Pokemon is really crazy. Now let me go over it. First off, Terrestrialization is going to buff this Pokemon a lot, as this Pokemon is mostly used in Sun teams. Because of that, you could Terrestrialize this thing into Terra Fire or Terra Rock for extreme usage with the Terra Blast. So I can see this Pokemon being used a lot more once this comes out in the VGC meta. Not only that, it has a really good hidden ability, which is Chlorophyll, which boosts the Pokemon speed in Sun. So like if you're running Torkoal with the ability Drought, you could bring in Venusaur and it gets a boost in speed. I think it's doubled. Like I think the speed stat is doubled if you're in Sun. But nonetheless, that ability is extremely good. And it has, like, it is a very good move pool. Let me go to this. It has a good move pool. I'm not going to say it's cracked, but it does have a good move pool of moves like Solar Beam. It has moves like Venoshock. It has Giga Drain. What else? As Petal Dance, it has Sludge Bomb. It even has Earth Power. Earth Power is a really good move to have on Venusaur because with that, it helps it go up against Rock type Pokemon that it can't deal with. It helps it go up against Poison types, Steel types, and Fire types that it will probably have trouble with. That's what makes this Pokemon so good, because despite its stats, it has a very good ability. It has a very good special attack moveset. And this Pokemon is going to get a buff with Terrestrialization. That's what makes this thing so good. And it was often used a lot in the Sword and Shield meta, as you can see here. Despite that usage, like this was during the time where the Isle of Armor was out, where this Pokemon got into G-Max form. This Pokemon was used so much, so just don't mind the 8%. This Pokemon was used a lot during that time. And there's even good moves that it has, like Sleep Powder, Weather Ball, Earth Power, Leaf Storm. Those were the most used, because people would mostly use it as a G-Max Pokemon. So since we're not in the G-Max meta, we're in the Terrestrialization meta, this is going to change a lot. Now if we look at the Smogon meta, this Pokemon was used in the underused tier, and it did have the G-Max form, and it was like around Ubers and whatnot. And you can look at this is also being used as a Chlorophyll sweeper with the move Growth. So despite its stats, this Pokemon is extremely powerful. Like, I really look forward to using this Pokemon again. I think Venusaur is going to be the first Pokemon that I make a team on when the Indigo disc comes out. Like, I really can't wait for this. If you made it this far into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's really appreciated. And last but not least, number one of the top 10 returning Pokemon in the Indigo DLC is none other than Incineroar. Now, most people will not be surprised that Incineroar is number one. Some of you guys will be maybe surprised, I'm not sure, but honestly, Incineroar is the number one most used Pokemon in the old meta. And looking at its statistics and and Pikalytics, it reflects it. This Pokemon has been used 73.76% of the time in the VGC meta of Sword and Shield. This Pokemon is just too crazy like that. Because of that, this Pokemon is like, it's really good. And looking at its stats and what it can do with its move pool, it really makes up for it, along with its ability of being Intimidate. This Pokemon is extremely good. And yeah, I'm gonna get over it like little by little. So first off, the ability Intimidate, really good ability to have in double battles, so you can deal with like a lot of strong physical attackers. So that's good. The stats now, even though it has a very poor speed stat, its HP, attack, and defenses make up for it a lot. Because it has a very strong attack stat of base 115, very good bulk of HP being base 95, and good defenses being base 90 for both defense and special defense. And its type, fire and dark, really good defensively, because not most of these types here can touch it. That's what makes this Pokemon so good, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, because we're not even done yet with how crazy this Pokemon is used. We can look at its diverse move pool, how it has a lot of strong attacks. It has Darkest Lariat, that was a signature move, where it could ignore stat changes. It has moves like Throw Chop. What else? It has Flare Blitz. It has, like, there's so much stuff that's going for this Pokemon, it's not even funny. There's moves like Thunder Punch. You can even run, like, Brick Break. You can run Drain Punch, Shadow Claw, its signature move, Acrobatics, Bulldoze. You can run Stomping Tantrum on this thing. And when it was out during Sword and Shield, they gave it a lot more moves that I could benefit from, like moves like Fake Out, Power Trip, Lash Out. Like, there's so much stuff going for Earthquake, Outrage. This Pokemon alone, because of this one Pokemon, it changed up the meta forever. Like, ever since this Pokemon debuted in Sun and Moon, it just changed up the meta completely. This Pokemon's been used so much, and having Terrestrialization is going to buff this Pokemon to the extreme. It's not even funny. And even though, like I said, it has a poor speed stat, it is still able to keep up with the most top tier Pokemon in the meta right now of Scarlet and Violet. It can be able to keep up with Tornadus. It can keep up with the Genies, basically. Ursaluna, Blood Moon form as well. Fluttermane, the Ruinous Pokemon. Most of the Paradox Pokemon that is used a lot in the doubles meta, this Pokemon can keep up with them. And because this is the reason why this Pokemon is number one, because it is just built, I don't know to say this Pokemon is just built different. So yeah, there's that. But oh my gosh, like, I know for a fact, once this Pokemon comes out in the Indigo disc, everything's just gonna go straight to crap. Like, it's just wild. And there you have it. This has been the top 10 returning Pokemon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Indigo disc DLC. You guys let me know in the comments if your favorite Pokemon made it into the list, or if it didn't. I apologize for that, but these were Pokemon that was chose a lot. I did a lot of research into these Pokemon, so I picked out which Pokemon was best for this list. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, the Indigo disc DLC will be coming out next week from now, so I will be having a lot of videos talking about it, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, leave a like, comment, subscribe. It is always appreciated. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.